companies and the shareholders suffer. It happens here too.
And those are labor organizations. What we're seeing in India right now are political parties organizing citizens, not necessarily workers who are working in a particular industry. So you're seeing political parties who normally would not work together, all angry at the same enemy, in this case Congress, who's in charge, and they are getting everyday people out on the streets. And even those people who maybe don't want to close down their business are pretty much forced to do so because there's so much pressure and it's so widespread. So I do think there's a difference between the unions organizing and then the political parties pretty much shutting down a country.
One time, I remember it was a strike by the farmers. They brought their tractor trailers and the others. They locked up 14th Street. They locked up few streets around the Capitol too. No one could go to work. It was the only time I remember. All the other protests, I mean, we are in Washington, D.C.
We get them all the time.
We get a protest a day, sometimes more than one a day. But it's always very peaceful, very nice. They come in, they talk about the issues, and they move on. But you're right. I mean, now that you remind me, Hindustan Band, Bharat Band, I mean, that's amazing. They can do that, you know.
You know, India's tourist industry is huge, but I did not know that more Americans visit India than any other group. I had assumed maybe it was people from the UK or from other parts of Asia. But
Middle East would be our largest contingent, I believe.
Especially given how close we are geographically, right?
That's right.
But its number one is the United States, closely followed by the UK, and then a distant third would be Bangladesh, and of course many other countries after that. I was particularly interested to read that there has been some growth in particular regions of the world. For example, there are more people coming to visit India from Africa, from Central and South America, and also from Southeast Asia. So as before we were used to seeing most of the visitors coming from the US or from Europe, now we're seeing a growth in other parts of the world being interested in coming to India.
You know, 165 million travelers are supposed to come to India in the next 10 to 15 years. That's a huge jump, folks. Last week, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh cut the ribbon for the new airport in Delhi.
Yay, finally!
Yes, but by the way, this airport is as big as one in Hong Kong, as big as one in Singapore, as nice as these airports are, folks. One of the greatest things about the Indian government on this particular project is they finished it in 37 months, whereas Beijing Airport took 48 months to finish.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's impressive. But no, not every project goes like this, you know. 300 other projects that are 60 months beyond late. But there's a story about this particular airport. This is private and public partnership. The private part is this German company. And they were invited to do this, and they've been able to run this. But they were promised so many other airports and the other things, and they're saying, where are the projects? They haven't seen it. So India, as good as it is becoming, they still need to work on that red tape.
Bureaucracy, it's like our middle name.
Or this. A little bit of this goes a long way sometimes. I know of a friend of mine who actually came back to the United States. He says, hey, he just couldn't deal with this parallel underground economy. Very hard for many of us to do that, you know. Though people say, oh, you can have a consultant, an Indian consultant. You pay the Indian consultant. What he does is not your business.
And then some magic will happen and
there you
things
go.
will work.
That's right.
Well, moving on, folks. You know that reality television is a big deal here in the United States, but it's becoming a big deal in China as well. And most recently, there's been a lot of controversy, particularly around reality TV shows around matchmaking and dating between young Chinese men and women. Apparently, the Chinese government is not so happy with some of the content on these TV programs, especially when they think there has been some immoral behavior or comments being made by the people on the shows. For example, young women who talk about wanting to be with a rich man and ignoring the guy with the bicycle for the guy with the BMW. Basically, they're, you know, these gold-digging type of girls. And they're really unhappy with the image that this is sending out to young Chinese people, that this is immoral, this goes against Chinese values, and so they're starting to ban and take that content off the air.
They're gold-digging guys, too, by the way.
That's true.
But, yeah, welcome to freedom. Hey, when you have freedom like that, sure, things happen, You know,
and I think there's a generation gap here, too, because the young Chinese people who were interviewed for this piece in the Washington Post were basically saying, well, the Chinese government can take this stuff off the air, but the fact is that people are living their lives this way. These are some real views for young people today, and just because you're not going to show it on TV doesn't mean you're going to change the way that they think and the way that they behave.
That's reality TV.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Durbin, he is from Illinois. He's very afraid that there is another recession coming. A bubble is going to burst, and this time it's not going to be the housing, but it's going to be in the education, for-profit college education. This is what he says. There's a growing concern that we could be looking at a repeat of the subprime mortgage fiasco with low-income, high-risk students mortgaging their futures, not an overpriced home this time, but on worthless diplomas.
Wow.
You know, he's very concerned. There has been a tremendous number of these colleges on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they buy a small college, they get accredited, and then they just, sell that through a slick marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where they tell you that if you do this, you'll be in the middle class. I mean, you go to college and you actually learn with other students, being open and